Hello and welcome to Fit After 40. I'm Chris here with Tony, and our guest today is Nicholas Britt-Cunningham. Nick is a trainer and a Jiu Jitsu instructor, so we are excited to talk about Jiu Jitsu, particularly for the older athlete. Nick, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I did not know that's what we were talking about. I thought this was how to lose a girl in 10 minutes and I was ready.
well,
Ah,
your other area of expertise is
That's
for the
it.
follow-up podcast, so.
Okay, okay. And
does
you
it
could
take a full hour to explain that? No.
it takes about 10 minutes. Show you everything about my personality and that's it. And
You can't put a paper bag over the personality,
that's right.
unfortunately.
That's right. Hey, and before we get too much into this, you called me a jujitsu instructor, and right off the bat, I just want to explain that yesterday, I've been doing jujitsu for 10 years now, and I thought I was close to getting a black belt, but yesterday I went and rolled with Coach Sean Hammonds, who's he's the master guy here in Nashville, and he's got several affiliate schools under him and another black belt, and they did this 30-minute round robin thing where
Okay.
2 minutes per opponent, and then you switch, and then you get a 2 minute break, basically. My back never left the mats. I had a grown man on top of me the entire time. So all the expertise I was coming to the show with today, it's gone. But I can pretend. I can
What?
speak as if I was one of them.
All right, well, fake it till you make it.
Just trying to
You
keep it
know what,
fair.
though? You know what? I don't want to talk to anyone that hasn't had their ass kicked at least once. What perspective can they share if
That's the truth, and it's every day for me. So we're in the right place then. Cool.
So, Nick, when you and I met 15 years ago or so, you were playing in a rock band, slinging drinks. Your life has changed a lot in those years. Maybe we could start by sharing just a little bit about your personal journey.
Yeah, when I came to Nashville, luckily I wound up at that restaurant with you as the manager. I'd actually had a hard time kind of getting a job when I first moved out here. I was a bartender in New Mexico first, and that was after years and years of, I was in my 20s. I was full ride scholarship to New Mexico State University. I went
Wow.
for English and business. Why are you acting surprised, bro? That's really rude.
I'm just impressed. You're a smart guy.
I'm not. Actually, I dropped out. But so when I was about 20, midway through my 20s, I was working at a Marriott hotel as well to try to get myself through college. I had to pay rent and stuff like that. But I wasn't allowed to live on campus at that time because I transferred late. But anyway, I got a phone call from my dad, and he was really struggling with depression and stuff. And this guy, he was my idol. He walked on to Michigan State football, played AAA
Wow.
baseball, played hockey, then was a state trooper, worked to try to create a NASCAR track in Denver. The guy was this big, brawny, just amazing dude. Everybody loved him. He was handsome, unlike me. I don't know where those genes went, but he was really struggling with depression. And I remember, turning to my girlfriend one time after he called me, and I just said, he doesn't sound good. I'm kind of worried about him, and I'm not usually worried about this guy. And about 3 weeks later, I got a phone call that he self-inflicted and killed himself.
Oh,
And
man.
I tanked. So instead of doing things the proper way, which would have been like good therapy and having exercise and, maybe leaning into a martial art or something, if that would have existed at the point, uh, I found drugs. So I dropped out of school. I say dropped out. I got booted out of school.
Yeah.
Moved to LA, was street performing for a while, living with my bandmates, trying to make things work. It just never was good. Um, and I started to exercise out there. I was street performing when a famous bodybuilder pulled up on Sunset Strip and was like, "Hey man, you're really good. Here's my card. Why don't you call me and I'll see if I can't help you out." Next day I called him and he said, "Here's the deal. I'm gonna help you with music, but you got to start exercising." Because I was like 6'1", 150 pounds, 155 maybe.
Wow.
I mean, tiny, just a rail. Purple hair, 14 piercings in my
Hmm.
face. It wasn't a good thing. But after working out I went into the gym and I only made it about 5 minutes before I was throwing up. So I was like, this isn't good. I
Wow.
did a little less blow the next time I went to the gym and lasted a little bit longer. Then I started noticing this parallel of if I do fewer drugs, I do better exercise. So eventually
Yeah.
it got me to where I didn't want to do anything before I lifted. And then I was getting high from these workouts and lasting a lot longer, feeling better throughout the rest of the day. And I said, there's something to this. I'm just going to focus on this for a while. So anyway, I move out of LA, back to New Mexico for a little bit, having bad relationships. School, I tried to get back in school. It wasn't for me. So I decided maybe it's time to move back in with my parents. And just regroup. So I'm 26 years old, lost, didn't know what to do except for music my whole life. And here I am, back with my parents in a small town in New Mexico with nothing to offer. I start bartending and I see Nashville on TV during a football game. And I was like, you know what? Music City. I haven't tried that or burned any bridges there. Maybe I'll try it. So I get online, find an apartment, move straight out, sight unseen, hustle around, try to find a job. Luckily, you guys were the first ones that actually picked me up. It took me about 3 weeks to get a job, probably because I'm ugly. It's the tattoos and stuff. Back then it was a different kind of Nashville. It was still a little bit more conservative, and there weren't a whole lot of places like Jackson's where there,
Right.
you could have that cool vibe. And there was definitely not a rock scene that was the way it was a couple years later. So
Sure.
anyway, I get to Jackson's, I'm bartending, and just music was everything. It was rehearsal every day, recording, writing, putting shows together, then putting tours together. And that consumed about 10 years of my time here. Then I got married. If anybody's listening, just don't do it. Just never do it. Just stay as far away from it as you possibly. I'm just kidding. I got married, and then I didn't want to be on the road anymore. It
Sure.
was, why sleep in the trashy hotels and be in the back of the cramped van with dudes farting all around you when you got a big bed at home and a dog, and you could stick to an eating regimen. So I started to pull off of music just a little bit. And I was at a party with my wife at that time for one of the guys who owned a gym called Hotbox. Do you remember Hotbox?
Oh yeah.
Okay, exactly. If you're from Nashville and you don't know what Hotbox is, you're not really from Nashville. Hotbox was like the first high intensity cardio kickboxing gym that existed before the Barry's boot camps, before the Mayweathers, all those things. Jamie Bryant, Tim Shaw, Kyle Mims.
Yep.
They assembled this thing called Hotbox, and they cranked on these heaters. Incredible dudes. They cranked on these heaters to about 670,000 degrees, and
What it feels like.
It's what it felt like. They hang these kickboxing Muay Thai bags in, and they just beat your ass for an entire hour. And then right when you're like, okay, my arms can't throw anymore, they're like, great, get on the floor and do some push-ups. And you're like, no, but I can't anymore. Well, roll over and do some sit-ups. And that was like that was my first experience with like high intensity workouts. And I told Kyle, I said, what if I wanted to get into this? I wanted to be a personal trainer into the fitness world and kind of trade some of this bartending stuff. What would the process look like? And he said, get certified and you have a job waiting for you. So I got lucky, and it was a freezing winter that year, and there was a lot of snow, a lot of ice. Things were canceling. The restaurants were closing a lot. I sat around and I studied, and I went straight to work at Hotbox, and it changed my life. It was wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, get to these classes that start at 5, and I fell in love with it. I was at a party for one of the guys Jamie Bryant, at his wedding, and there were all these mongoloid dudes, just like tatted, jacked up, and they kept like giving me these ugly looks, and I was like, what's this all about? And I eventually grabbed my wife and I was like, I think we should leave. I don't think I'm safe here. I don't know why. This little guy walks up to me and he's like, hey, where are you guys going? And I'm like, I don't feel comfortable here. There's a lot of, stairs going around, and I don't feel the need to have conflict. And he's like, oh, don't worry about them. They're not tough. He's like, I could kick all their asses. And this guy's like mid 5 feet, you know what I mean? 5'8" maybe. And I'm like, really? Like, who's this little guy? And he goes, oh yeah, no, I compete at Jiu Jitsu. And I'm like, oh, cool. I mean, I know some I watch UFC. I love Jiu Jitsu. I've never tried it. And he's like, so you understand the sport? And I was like, oh, I understand triangles, arm bars, rear naked chokes and stuff like that, but I've never done it. And he goes, you should try it. I said, I will someday. And he goes, no, Monday. And I'm like, okay, one of these days. And he goes, no, Monday. I went home and I just was like, why was he called me out. He said Monday. I better go. Monday,
That's
I went in there. You ever had bubble gut, or like, the shits?
Oh yeah.
Where you're just so nervous. I don't know about you. I was picked on in junior high and high school a lot, where people were like, I'm going to fight you after class. And you just get that feeling where you're like, I have to go to the bathroom right now. I need to go to the bathroom. I walked into this gym with just the worst case of bubble gut. I hadn't eaten anything in a day and a half, because I'm like, this is really terrifying. And I walked in. This is Sean Hammonds and Ed Clay, another guy here in Nashville. It was Ed Clay's Nashville MMA back in those days. And it was this warehouse, the bottom floor in East Nashville. And I walked in and no air conditioner, no heaters, and it just smelled like sweat. And there were just these grown mongoloids throwing each other from one side of the room to the other, and then pulling on each other's arms and screaming tap. And I'm just like, dear God, get me out of here. This was a mistake. So I signed up, and that's where it started. It was the
Yeah.
craziest addiction I've ever had, where walking out of there that same day. Oh, and I remember like the very first move, there was a guy who, he squared up with me as my partner. And I told him, I was like, hey, it's my first day. I don't know anything. And he said, well, I do. Shot in on me, took me down, and I stood up and my thumb was broken. And I'm like, oh, this is
Oh,
good. So, and then I had to go back to the
Oh,
restaurant later that day because I was still trying to get out of the restaurant scene, but I'm like cutting
right.
bread with my thumb all taped up, but I was high as a kite from it. It was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. And it was the
Wow.
same as being in a schoolyard fight where you stand up at the end and you've won, but you like pick the other guy up and you're like, and we're good now? Like everything's square. And I just said, take my money. I signed up for a year. They had this
Mhm.
plan where, sign up month to month or commit to a
Right.
year. And I was just like, give me the year. I need to be committed to this. I don't want any reasons to back out. And ever since that day, that was in 2015, early 2015. And I just trained, 4 days a week ever since then. Became best friends with the coaches. That's another thing. I got really lucky that these coaches that I had, they weren't just like coaches to me. They became my best friends because I was there
Yeah.
so often. I got to know them. We started hanging out, and it made it to where I could not wait to be in that gym. And that's how it parlayed from music to jujitsu. And then, people would be like, hey, Nick, you guys want to play this show? And I'm like, no, I can't. I have jujitsu that morning. They're like, well, this is in the evening. And I was like, yeah, but I'll probably have a broken finger, so I'm not interested. And it really, my entire life of thinking that music was my identity. It's all I had. If that didn't work, I was out because I had nothing else. All of a sudden I had this other thing where I'm like, I don't care if I have to, clean urinals somewhere. As long as I can do this sport and be around this family and have this high every day, I'm in. So that's how that happened.
There's no community like a fitness community, man.
It's the
There's
truth.
just whatever it is. I tell you, you will not find deeper camaraderie anywhere than you will in a fitness family. That's just a
100%.
fact.
And to hear you say it too, it really does show like how far we have come.
yeah.
It
Because back
does.
then that wasn't your style either. I remember seeing
Not a
you in the
bit.
YMCA and you were a sommelier and everybody knew you for your drinkability. Like
Right.
you knew everything that there was about alcohol, and anytime there was alcohol, you could be found there. And I'd
That's
see you
where
in
you'd
the
find
gym.
me.
I'd see you at the gym doing your little 5-pound curls and stuff with terrible form. And now, and here you are, cycling across the US twice and before having your first Gatorade. It's like it's cool to
It's
watch how we grow.
it's been quite a transition. It has been
Yes,
quite
sir.
a transition. Yeah, I was spent a lot of years at the bottom of a bottle, to be frank.
What
But
that's why you have such a good story, man. And I hope more people get to hear, especially like the changes you've made. It's cool.
it's been big.
Yeah.
It's been big. I feel better. I'm in a
Good.
lot better shape than I was 20 years ago. I can tell
You
you
look
that.
better, and you're easier to
Well, thank
talk
you.
to now too, for sure. Yeah.
Well, fair. Maybe I'm less stuck on myself. Getting humbled a
That's right.
few times is good for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let me ask you this: with your transition, how do you feel like that your coaching is informed by your past life?
It's changed. I feel like because I was at such a low spot in my life and I made all the excuses for what my addictions, for my lethargy, I always was the guy that could find a reason to get out of anything that required commitment, dedication, growth, discipline. It's for me now when I see people that do the same thing. I think I don't want to say successful as a coach. I think I've had a career as a coach, both as a personal trainer and now doing some of these personal
Right.
training sessions in jujitsu. I think it's because I can look at people and say, that's an excuse. And now let's
Sure.
replace that with an effort. And usually they can't clap back because I'm not that person. I'm not the guy to try to be like, oh yeah, but I've never had anything easy. Never. So I think that's how that translates the best. I think that's why a lot of people still pay me after 4 or 5 years of personal training. They're on my roster 3, 4 days a week. They
Wow.
could go to the gym on their own, but there's something about
Yeah.
standing in front of me. Like I'll make sure you get that last rep out. And if you leave the gym and you're not feeling it later in the afternoon, then I failed you. So um, Yeah, I think that the experience of just knowing I made all these excuses and I've seen that the reward is on the other side of that resistance. So I really enjoy bringing that out of other people, and I don't shout. I don't have to whip anybody or do anything like that. I just remind them I've been there and how good it feels on the other side, and usually they're willing to get there.
And let's talk
Yeah.
about the rewarding parts of coaching because obviously, we do our jobs for a paycheck, but we also try to find some fulfillment there. And it sounds like you're finding a lot of fulfillment in this. So tell me about seeing these successes, how that feels to you, and just watching your clients grow.
I would have to say, my very first client, my first personal training client, her name was Alexa, and she had been doing like high intensity classes almost every day for years and really wasn't seeing any results. She had a high body fat percentage and was never confident in herself because of the shape that she had. And after, going through the personal training, the National Academy of Sports Medicine, becoming a personal trainer and being able to say, look, the problem here is that you're just running around. You're keeping your heart rate up. You're not really building any muscle. And lean muscle is what burns fat when we rest. So
That's
we
right.
want it. And it's the thing that stabilizes our musculoskeletal system to where we can protect ourselves. It protects our organs. It protects our joints, helps our bones to keep growing because keeping that tensile torsion, just keeping tension on the bones is what helps them to grow. It's when you stop having that resistance on your body that you start to atrophy and things start to deteriorate. So being able to tell her, look, let's cut back your cardio to maybe once or twice a week and really just start picking up heavy things and putting them back down. And her being like, no, but I don't want to look like a football player and I don't want to go up in weight. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
to get past that. If you'll trust me for 3 months, we'll see what happens. And within about 6 weeks, she lost a ton of weight. And within that 3 months, she became one of the most athletic looking people that I'd ever been around. And she had taken when you're with people every day, you don't really see the changes. And then she posted a picture of herself before and after. And I was like, this is unreal. And she posted it on Facebook. And the very next day, I had a full roster. All the people were like, how
Nice.
did you do that? And this is before semaglutides and Ozempics and stuff like that. This was
Right.
Yeah.
just the grind, just by
The
picking
old
up,
fashioned way.
weight training. And so it was a lot of girls. And a lot of these girls were like, how do you get me lean? How do I do that? And I just have to kept telling them, gotta lift heavy, and then watch what you eat. If you're packing on the carbs by yourself at 12 o'clock at night, that's on you. You're gonna look like a linebacker. But if we can clean this up a little bit, so that's where that went. And then it just has progressed over the years. I've been lucky that when I was no longer training young girls from these high intensity gyms, some of the older men were coming to me and being like, man, I can't get rid of this belly. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm running. I'm doing all these things. And I'm like, we got to lift. It's time to lift. It's time to do
That's
some
right.
core work, and let's change up the diet a little bit. And one of the biggest things there is that people are like, okay, well, I have a perfect diet. I have I've got a girl that I train right now, and she was a marathon runner. She's been running marathons for years, but was still large. She's like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I said, it makes perfect sense to me. You like to drink. They would go on these long
Yeah.
runs, and as soon as they're done
Yeah.
running, they pound some
Pop a
beers and
beer.
then go have drinks. And I'm like, wait a minute. All you did was that whole time was get rid of calories and stored fat, and you're putting these carbohydrates right back into your body in a sense that with alcohol, which your body only
Yeah.
recognizes this alcohol is what I have to focus on. This is poison. I have to get rid of it. So all the other stored things, all the other ingredients that are now in your body are just stored.
Right.
So I was like, if we can get you to where you stop drinking, you'll see some changes. Man, it was slow. It was really slow for her because she couldn't understand that even that one drink a night was negating the rest of the processes that her body wanted to go through. So, uh, heavy lifting, she started
Yeah.
to lose some weight. And even now, dry January, she just texts me every day and she's like, Nick, I feel ashamed at the fact I'm losing weight every day. And you've been saying this, that I just had to quit drinking. And I'm like, I know. Her sleep pattern is perfected. She tracks it all. She's
Oh,
sharing it. And it's
no.
crazy.
It's
And
remarkable.
her mood, the way she talks to other people, facial complexion, swelling of the cheeks, redness, all these things that I've been like 5 years, like, man, if we could just knock that last little thing out, I promise you're going to feel different. Now she's like, yep, I'm going to create a new resume because my job isn't fulfilling to me. I'm going to set a boundary with all these other people that come into my life and they sap. I'm like, This is what sobriety does,
Right.
That's what I take the most pleasure in, is watching people not even just lose weight, but how they're losing weight, how they're
Sure.
actually living a healthy lifestyle. We can all just go out and buy an 8 ball, not eat for a week and be like, oh, I
Right.
lost 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. But how's your
Yeah.
body actually
I,
functioning?
Look, if tooth retention is not important to you, I've got a great weight loss method in the form of
Right.
meth.
Exactly
If you
right.
actually want to look good,
Right.
you've got to increase your basal metabolic rate, which
100%.
requires an increase in muscle mass. And these, I hear it from women more than anybody. They don't want to bulk up too much. It's like, you don't know how hard it is to bulk up.
Right.
If you just add some strength, you're not going to look like a football player. You're just
Correct.
not. You're not going to eat that many calories, and
Right.
you're just not going to, that's not what happens.
Yeah.
Well, and you said it right there, and that's what people need to, anybody who's watching, to understand. That's what happens when you work out, is you have this your body has this massive need to rebuild itself, to repair itself, to
That's
burn
right.
down muscle. So people get hungry. Well, it's what you do with that hunger that determines whether or not you're getting calories that are actually replenishing that lean muscle, or
Protein.
protein, right? If we're putting protein on to build that muscle, which burns fat, or if you're just eating empty carbs and sugar and putting something in there that does nothing but stores right back into the body as
That's right.
glycogen. Yeah.
The other thing that alcohol does, in addition to being straight up metabolized as sugar, is alcohol interferes with protein synthesis. So it interferes with your recovery, and
Right.
it interferes with your improvement.
It
Go ahead,
stops
Tony.
it stops the process, and that's what
It
people don't
stops the
understand is
process.
scientifically, and it kills cells, like, and not just
Yeah.
a cell here and a cell there. It's everything, brain cells. We're like, man,
Yep.
well, but it takes the edge off at night. No, it does not. No,
Well,
you're compromising years of your life, and if you thought about that, you'd not be feeling chill after drinking it, for sure.
heroin takes the edge off. It's not good for you.
That's right.
We're actually seeing so much right now. I mean, we had the recent Surgeon General thing about how basically there's no acceptable level of alcohol
None.
consumption
Say it
at
again for
all.
the people in the back. There's
No,
none.
it
There's
doesn't.
none.
It has no benefit. It doesn't benefit your heart. That's just a kind of bullshit thing that came out to justify the sale of wine, I guess.
Right.
And but the other thing that you brought up in there, and I'm interested to see how this is affecting you as a trainer culturally, is you brought up Ozempic and like the use of that for weight loss, which I have a lot of problems with. So talk a little bit about that. Are you seeing that? I mean, just it seems unnatural. People that are taking it, like it doesn't give you the same things we were talking about. Where, like when you quit drinking and you start exercising, like you start to see the color return to your face. You look like a normal, healthy human being. Whereas when you take Ozempic, you look
Right.
different.
Different.
So it's a double-edged sword for me, because I've got a couple of people that use it that I've seen massive results with, and they've continued to do the work of working out. They strength train all the time, and we're talking 360 pounders. So this isn't
Yeah.
your typical 220-pound female who's like, I need to take this because I can't stop binge eating. No, you won't stop binge eating. There's a difference between can't and won't. Um, I know some literal billionaire women who are already in great shape that still take it because they want to get down to this tiny. It's like it's a
Mhm.
competition these days to see who can become the skinniest and watch that number fall. Composition is everything. It's rare that I even look at a scale anymore and think, uh-oh, I'm at this number. I'm at this number. Usually I look at my body and I feel it. I'm like, what am I doing? How is my sleep? How is my acid reflux and my
Sure.
digestion, my regularity? Those are the things where I can really get a gauge of how healthy I am. So I've got other people that take Ozempic and they still drink, which is odd to me because it is supposed to help. And they'll tell me, well, I'm just having one drink every now and then. Like, yeah, but you're willing to put this thing into your take the shot into your body to get a result that's completely being negated by this other beverage that you don't need, that's completely counterproductive to your goal. It doesn't make sense. Those
Yeah.
people aren't really seeing the same results. So then they're coming in with debilitating nausea because they'll have a drink and I'm chill now, so I'm going to eat these foods that are still not good for me. They're not doing the weight training the way they should be.
Right.
And you're right, their faces change. There's a lot of depression that comes along with it. You're on it for life. All it does is curb a craving, and if you're not learning how to have discipline
Once it goes
to
away.
It doesn't go. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't get to stop. The weight comes back on. They say within 3 to 6 weeks, everything that
Oh,
you've lost
wow.
can start coming
Instantly.
back on that quick. It's immediate. Like all it's doing is curbing a craving, the
Hmm.
same way that any other kind of stimulant would that makes us not hungry.
Right.
So I don't like it for that. I feel like it used to be like you used to be able to celebrate really well. I've lost all this weight. Here's my before and after. And people would look at it and say, God dang, that's hard work. This is what hard work does. And then the rest of us who are already, are maintaining decent shape, we would get credit for the fact that we've stayed disciplined. It's not about the motivation. It's not, well, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't like it the way you do. I don't like going to the gym most of the time either, but I love the way I feel every time I walk out
Right.
the doors. And
That's
Yeah.
it.
that's the discipline it takes me to wake up in the morning, drive my truck there, climb out, and go do what I need to do.
It's so quintessentially American, though, right? Because we obviously have a huge obesity problem in this country that just continues to grow year by year by year. And, on this show, we try to talk about how we can fix these problems at their core, right? So that's what you're doing. That's what you do every day is you try to help people fix those problems at their core. But, counter to that, we also have this massive culture that's the easy way out. It's always the easy way out. And the easy way out always has repercussions. Like you're stuck on this stuff for life. It's just not a good way to go about things in general.
Right. I agree. That there's plenty of people out there that if you're in the 400-pound range, high threes, you're not getting any results because it's almost impossible for you to do anything in the first
Yeah.
place. Take the shot, do what you got to do, but do the rest of the work too. You know,
Yeah.
your weight and your obesity. Everybody always calls it fat shaming and body shaming. It's not. I don't look at people and just think, oh, you're so unhealthy, it's gross. I think, you're driving up healthcare costs. You're taking these people that need drugs that they can't have because they're born with, with diabetes, and you lack discipline. You have no
Right.
fork control. You can't
Yeah.
out-train your fork. One of the coaches at the gym that I train
No.
with, Jeff Bergholz, he says it all the time to his clients who would come in and, why can't I just lose this fat? And he'll tell them straight to their face,
It's in the
I can't,
kitchen.
I can't out train your fork. You just keep plowing it in. There's nothing that's going to be done about that.
Yeah.
So it is hard because there are some people that do need it.
Sure.
And binge eating I think it's a mental health disorder as well. So I never want to take away from people and say that that their issues aren't valid. It's valid. You've got
Yeah.
there's issues that are causing you to eat that way, but why not address that root issue as opposed to
Sure.
just addressing the symptom instead of saying, I am binge eating.
I think there has to be a line too where because we always have this issue. Like, yeah, there's definitely a psychological disorder going on. There's something that needs to be fixed and so on. But there's a line between that and then not wanting to shame people, but also recognizing it's a health problem. It's a health problem
Right. That's right.
societally, across the board. And like you point out, it costs everybody. So, you know, in a positive, we can focus on this issue in a positive way. We can look at it in a positive way as to
Right.
how do we fix it?
Uh, how do we fix it?
How? If we
We,
knew that,
yeah,
so
we nuke ourselves. We start over from
Ozempic. Yeah.
scratch. Yes,
yeah.
that's it.
So
Uh,
Nick, if you were going to describe your training philosophy, your overall philosophy, how would you characterize that? Your approach to working, whether it's the kickboxing gym, on the
yeah,
jujitsu mat, or in the weight room. What is your philosophy?
don't stop moving. Just move every damn day. Do hard stuff every single day. I don't care. I talk to people and they're like, yeah, I don't have time for the gym because I do construction. I'm like, I promise you, I know how hard construction is. I've been there before, and that's hard, but it's still not addressing the things that you need to address. You're not getting your squats, your deadlifts in, your full range of mobility. You're moving heavy things, and that's taxing on the body. And yes, that's draining. And by the time you're done, you're done.
You
But
don't want to.
you don't want it.
Yeah.
But I also know people, and I watch them every day coming to the gym at 4 a.m. and lift and do heavy things, and then they go to their construction jobs and their bodies are in great shape, and then they just don't make the excuses. For me, I tell everybody, you got to do something every single day, and weight training has to be in there sometime through the week. Not
Yep.
everybody can lift heavy things every single day. That's fine. But if I need you to cycle, today, I need you to swim tomorrow, I need you to do hot yoga the next day. It's living a life of an active lifestyle is what it comes down to. Now, for weight loss and longevity, it's like it comes right back to the lean muscle.
That's right.
Back in the day, I used to want to, I want to deadlift 500 pounds and bench press 300 and always like, oh, PRs, everything's about a PR. I got to be stronger. No, it's not. It's just, is this heavy? Yes. Does it make me fatigued or fail? Yes. That stimulates growth hormone response, and I'm building muscle. I'm 40. I mean, I'm 30. I'm 43 now, and I go to these gyms, these MMA gyms, and train with some of these guys that are much younger. They're much faster and they've got better stamina. But to be able to even get down on the mat, be able to stand back up without using my hands or take a fall and know that that's not broken, get tossed somewhere and stand back up and be like, oh, cool, nice throw. Too many people at my age already are like, if I put them on the ground and just said, now, without using your hands, just stand back up, it would
Yeah.
be, a
Oh man.
show. It's just so the philosophy is every single day, do something hard and
Yep.
generally start your day with it. Whatever it is, start
Feels
the
so
day with
much
it.
better.
So much better. Your mood's better, your
Focus.
road rage. In Nashville, if I haven't worked out first thing, I get up and I'm at work before most people hit the road. If
Mhm.
I don't do that and I show up to work at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., on my way there, I've lost all my Christianity. I'm like, it's gone, because people are so bad. I'm so high strung about it. When you've gone and you've already gotten the endorphins from working out, you've created that dopamine, which that's all we're all searching for in the first place, whether
That's
we
right.
do drugs or we're trying to drink or we're staring at porn or we binge eating, whatever it is, it's all that dopamine hit. Well, when you go do something that gives you that dopamine hit, but then lasts longer and hits those receptors in a bioidentical way, the way you're designed, it's not synthesized. There's nothing better, and it just sustains for the rest of the day. And you know, I struggled with my family for a long time because none of them to this day have a gym membership, and they'll probably watch this and they'll be like, "Oh, we got one at Christmas." You got one, but that doesn't mean you work out. But they've
Yeah.
always kind of shamed me because they're like, "We're not so vain that we care about our muscles." And I try to tell them all the time, "I'm not a bodybuilder.
It's
I
not just
literally,
that.
the body that I have is not from going into the gym and being like, oh, check out this curl. I have mental health issues and I take it to the gym and my body is showing the byproduct of being in the gym to work on mental health issues. These muscles grow because I'm putting in hard work. The other byproduct of that is the mental health issues go away.
It's all connected.
I don't take antidepressants. I don't take anti-anxiety medicine. And let me tell you right now, uh, man, for all the girls that I'm currently, in discussions with about dating and stuff, they'll tell you this is true. In the first 5 questions I ask them about themselves, like how much do you drink, all these other things, do you have a faith, do you have anything like that? I say, how is your sleep and how much anxiety do you have? Almost
Mm.
every one of them currently doesn't sleep well and has a high state of anxiety. Okay, well, next, what's your favorite kind of exercise? Uh, in the summer, I like to walk. Sometimes I'll hike. It was
Hmm.
nice talking to you, and I have to go now. I
Right.
can't fix it anymore to make people understand. If you do the first things first, which in my opinion, as somebody who's gone to therapy for a long time and had it expressed to me as well, it's not an or option. It's not diet or exercise.
Right.
Diet, the food, and then when you say diet, everybody imagines chicken and broccoli and rice all day long. No,
Right.
I just mean
No.
no. I don't want to see you eating, Swedish red fish, M&Ms, Skittles, Starbursts,
Right.
and pasta all day.
Sugar and simple carbs.
Simple carbs, and then we're talking about drinks where they're consuming Cokes, Diet Cokes, things with
Right.
aspartame, caramel color, sodium benzoate, potassium benzoate, these things that are known
Right.
adjutants that create hypertension, like, and they're guzzling them. I'm like, okay,
Yep.
that's kind of sketchy. So watching your diet every single day. If you can't, if you have a, if I don't know, like if you've got a leaky gut syndrome and you're sitting around eating jalapenos and chips and salsa, you're creating a problem, right? Like why would you wouldn't continue to do that? So if you've got anxiety and sleeplessness, why are you guzzling these terrible sodas and beverages like that? And then consuming food that you know is bad for you. So
Right.
diet, number one. And then exercise. Do you do it? No, they all pass on that. Okay. How about therapy? Are you talking to anybody about the root issues, or is your therapist your mom, your sister, the
Right.
barstool bishop who's at happy hour,
Yeah.
slamming their martini? Let me share my opinion. You know what I mean? No,
Right.
that's not what it is. And then volunteering, that's one that was thrown in there that I had never really considered for a long time, but that's why I have a nonprofit is volunteering gives you a chance to stop thinking about your problems, ruminating about your circle all the time,
Right.
just staying in that loop of this is the catastrophe I'm in. I can't sleep. I'm tired. I'm not eating. I have anxiety. I have these problems. You push pause on all that, help somebody else out, see what their issues are, then not compare yourself, but then put yourself next to them. You're not always as bad off as you think you are. And just finding out
Certainly
that
not.
somebody else is in a much a worse off boat that has more holes in it, is sinking faster, doesn't make you gloat. You're not like, haha, my boat's better, but makes you realize I should appreciate this boat, you
Without a
know?
doubt.
Some people have real problems.
Correct, correct.
Some people
Um,
have real problems. And, with everything going on in the world right now, my full-time job is disaster relief. And I see it. I see people that have lost their homes. And
right.
it turns the
Everything.
volume on my frustrations way down.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah, that's big stuff. But
So,
exactly. So, just watching people struggle with finding that peace, and it's like, what are you doing to actually build the peace? Because I don't think peace is just given. I think that
sure.
we can receive it. We're like maybe it is this thing that we're designed to receive, but we can't do it with these full hands of all the toxins that are
Right.
counterintuitive to that peace. So it's like set down your crap, stop making the excuses, and it comes. Uh, I don't remember what the
So,
question was. I hope I answered it.
You
well,
did. It's great.
Okay.
you're doing really great. I find this conversation quite interesting, and I think it's really good. And of course, we know now from this that your kind of area of expertise is jujitsu. You're a trainer. You do jujitsu. Chris cycles. I run. We all have our thing that we do intensely to kind of to alleviate the problems you're talking about. And a lot of that does involve finding an activity like that, doing it intensely, really devoting yourself to it.
Right.
Um, and then that does make for a better life. So, can you talk a little bit about jujitsu? I know you're
Yeah.
prepared to talk about the history of it and all that.
Yeah. Let's start with the origins.
Yeah, start with the origins. Yeah.
What about the
I
part?
do.
What about the discipline that you practice? Tell me about that specifically, because I know there's so many different.
Is I do Sean Hammond's American Jiu-Jitsu. Sean Hammond's is world renowned. He's been he competes at the highest level, world championships, Pan American championships in gi and no gi. So gi is what you see where the guys go in basically in a rash guard or shirtless and they're in some shorts and they're basically wrestling for submissions, or it's like UFC without striking. Whereas
Yeah.
gi or a kimono is the robe you see that's similar to karate or taekwondo. And those gis are actually designed to emulate or simulate uh, a gentleman's sport where back in the day, people on the streets were wearing sport coats and pants, trousers, blazers. And so it was a fighting system designed to use those grips, right? So instead of walking up to somebody on the street with their top hat and a cane and you guys just going fisticuffs and striking at each other, it's literally designed to be able to grab somebody's collar, pull them in close to you, and perform what's called like a loop choke and submit the person unconscious by using their own clothing against them.
Hmm.
Gi Jiu-Jitsu is I don't want to even say specialty. Like I said yesterday, I was so beaten
Well,
down. It was like day one, but it is my favorite. And it's the one that I
okay.
like to compete in. It's the one that I when I did compete, it's the one that I would medal in. It's fascinating to me because of how technical it is. And it's a lot of the people that I bring into the sport now, like that's my other favorite thing to do is expand the community. I watch a lot of people in my gym that have been there for 10 years and I've never seen them bring another person. And I don't understand it because I'm like,
Hmm.
if you love this the way I do, why aren't you trying to get every person involved? Because when you come out of a gym where you're strangling somebody, it makes the rest of the day really easy. You don't have to worry about your boss talking trash because you can just look at him and be like, yeah, I could kill you. And there's this a piece that comes along with that. But so the origins came from that. It's a ancient grappling system, just like Greco-Roman wrestling. It's always been
Sure.
there. It's evolved into where it's joint manipulations, chokes. and it came into the UFC back in the day. The UFC used to be the Ultimate Fighting Championship was
Right.
literally style versus style. It would be a boxer versus a wrestler, or a
Sure.
karate specialist versus a jiu-jitsu specialist. And there were no jiu-jitsu was just this thing that nobody really knew about. This is in the early 90s. This isn't something that's in the
Sure.
20s or 50s. We're talking about the Gracie families in the
Yep.
90s.
Yeah. When we
And
were in
I
high
was
school.
we were in high school, and in fact, that's how I got into it. That how I first I worked at Blockbuster Video as one of my first jobs as
Oh
a
yeah. They had all
freshman
the
in high
videos.
school.
We
Bro,
used
they
to
would
rent
come
them.
out, and you had to be 18.
That's
I'm
right.
I'm 15, and I'm like, can I take this? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. And I'm like, hee, hee, hee. And I grabbed my little popcorn and some red vines, and I would take these cassettes home, and I'd put them in my TV. And I come from a hardcore Christian family, and so if they knew I was watching the UFC, I'd be grounded, or they'd take my keys or whatever from my car. So I would put it in this tiny little TV, and I'd press the volume all the way down to like where it said one, so you can barely hear it. I'd get up and I'd just watch these fights, and I'd sit there and shake with adrenaline, like, oh my God, these are grown men killing each other. Eye gouges, nut shots. There were no rules. And then all
That's
of a
right.
sudden, these skinny little jujitsu guy comes in there and
Royce
starts
Gracie.
Royce Gracie, and he just starts beating everybody. And
Everybody.
he'd throw a punch or two on occasion, but it was just like close the gap and use this person's body against him. And I was fascinated.
Submit every one of them.
Everybody. And so you start seeing that it just keeps growing. And then, instead of it becoming just karate versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, blah, 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 it became MMA, mixed martial arts, because every single person recognized, if you don't have Jiu-Jitsu in your arsenal,
You
you
don't
better get
win.
out of the cage. You have to get out. You're going to die. Because no matter if you can strike, if you could be the best boxer in the world, if you don't know what to do when the fight hits the ground, you're dead. So I've always just loved it. And, I watched it. The MMA, it was one of those things that UFC, I had it, but there was LimeWire. I don't know if you guys remember LimeWire in the
Oh
early
yeah.
2000s. You could
Oh
download
yeah.
every fight.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
I watched every single fight of UFC up until probably, I've only missed a couple cards in my entire
Yeah.
life, and you just watched it. Jiu-Jitsu's in every single one of them. So uh, it's just like the most necessary thing. And then you look at special forces, law enforcement. They
That's
all
right.
will tell you, you ask them, what's your favorite method of self-defense? And they'll tell you their pistol. They don't
But
that
Yeah.
and teamwork. Having 6-on-1 is definitely a good way to keep yourself safe. But when those two things are gone, jujitsu is the thing that saves their lives. Being able to get hand-to-hand combat and subdue their opponents that way. I mean, it really is just an incredible sport.
excellent.
Yeah.
I heard an interview with Henner Gracie talking about they have a program for law enforcement, and they had a perfect case study in a police department in Georgia, I think it was. And the police department said anybody that wants to take jujitsu, the department will pay for it, and it was Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And so they had half the department took it, half of them didn't. And of the half that took it, when you compared the two groups, the people that took jujitsu, they were much less likely to get injured themselves on the job. They were much less likely to use their service weapon,
right.
because if you're a police officer and you got a guy who's just bigger than you and stronger
Right.
than you, and he goes for your gun,
Yeah.
you're going to end up firing your weapon, and that's not
Right.
an outcome that anybody wants. I don't think.
Right.
But these guys with the jujitsu training would just lock the guy down, put him in a submission hold, and like, look,
Yeah.
we're going to jail now, and that's the end
Right.
of the story. And so it was beneficial both for the suspect, for the officer, and for the department. They had
The
fewer
entire
OSHA
community.
claims.
It's the whole community.
Yeah.
Makes
You don't
everybody
have
safer.
correct. You don't have a bunch of loose cannons running around who are afraid and terrified because they don't really, they spent all their time behind a gun, and they know how to end something, neutralize a threat with a gun, but they don't
Yep.
really have the confidence to get it on the ground and sleep somebody. Weapons are a different story, but as far as just one person, it really is sad to see
Yeah.
how many people it can be a one-on-one altercation, and these officers are just lost on the ground. But the beautiful thing is Sean Hammonds has actually, the black belts people that he has promoted to black belt, they're actually responsible for training Metro National PD right now.
That's
So
great.
in all
That's
these
great.
departments, they are the ones who want to. They are training and they are being promoted and they're climbing the ladder. And I see these guys out on the streets and they've got cool demeanors and, they're just, it's a different thing than seeing, a super overweight officer or state trooper who
Right.
he's not going to be able to catch you. He's not going to be able to fight long enough to do anything. And he already knows that. So you're likely going to lose your life. And they're already, it's a stressful job. So,
It is a
whether
stressful job.
whether they're right or they're wrong, you never know what they're going through either. And you could be the person that just happens to hit the nerve wrong. And that's the end. So it is nice to see the ones that train.
Yeah.
Wait, and what if you had so much confidence in your fighting skills that it made you a lover? What if you were able to connect with somebody eye to eye who's at that level of intensity and aggression, but you're able to level with them with your hands up and just say, hey, 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 let's find a solution to this. It's okay. Hey, I'm here. Calm down. Because you're
Yeah.
not so wound up and afraid.
Right.
You've spent some time in the precarious situations and you know to keep your space from the blade. And
Yeah.
if they don't have a gun, again, if they've got a gun, you're in a different situation. But
That is a different situation.
what if you're able to just talk to these people because you already know you're pretty skilled in what you do? And then, I don't know. I saw a guy, I-65 was closed about a year ago, and the guy was sitting there threatening himself, and traffic was shut down, and he was surrounded by officers. I hope I don't get, banned or 86 for all this, but in my opinion, it was the worst possible outcome that there was. They ended up shooting this guy, and it just didn't have to happen. I feel like enough people that train and that can be pacifists and communicators. I think that with enough information, all behavior makes sense. Are we asking enough questions to find out why this guy is on this level? Is there something else that we can do to get him to calm it down without showing up with 5 people and our guns drawn and our shields up to make him feel like he's a caged animal?
Right.
Like, I mean, personally, somebody approaching me that way, I'm going to probably freak out as well. But somebody stepping out of their car and trying to reason with me, I would think that it would give me enough peace to where I might be able to talk into a place of, all right, take me out of here. Get me some help.
De-escalate.
De-escalate
And
this, man.
Something interesting Joe, is I think that, and that's something we could probably get into too. You're talking about, a lot of it's the confidence that jiu-jitsu gives you as a human being, and I would expand this because our audience is broad and they all do different athletic endeavors. And I would say, like, I mean, the fact I know I can run 100 miles in a single run, that makes me a more confident individual.
Yep.
The fact
That's
Chris knows
amazing.
he can ride a bike for 100 miles at a time makes a more confident individual. Once you start building these levels of confidence through mastering a physical skill, it just makes you a better person in every single thing you do because it gives you a level of confidence about your physical abilities and what you can do with your body that just makes you
Agreed.
a stronger, more
Strong
confident
connection.
human.
Agreed. And it gives you something to do with your life where you're like, you know what? Everything else kind of sucks. And I'm not sure I'm finding purpose in things, but this gives me enjoyment and it's beneficial to, yeah. It's just having those things. Yeah.
So Nick, maybe you could speak to the specific health and mental health benefits that you see with these athletes when they do take up jiu-jitsu, because we've kind of danced around it, but you're seeing these people show up green as they can be and move into more seasoned athletes.
Yep.
So tell me about that transition. What do you see in these people?
There's a saying in jiu-jitsu that's really well known, and it's jiu-jitsu saves lives. And yes, it applies to the fact that it can help you get out of a physical altercation, but also the fact that the gym camaraderie, you go from being a person who's isolated, sitting on a couch watching movies all the time and have no friends, no community, to going into a gym where you're trusting these individuals, these grown athletes, to put you in a position with their arms around your neck or your arm extended and a joint able to break your arm. And you're trusting them that when you say tap or you touch them lightly and they just stop. When you have that kind of trust in other people, they become your brothers. These are no longer your people where you're going into the gym and you're like, you have fear of them. You have respect for them, for sure. There's still guys that I walk in, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do this. This guy's going to mangle me. But I know that at any given minute when I say tap, It's over. So it changes your life in the sense that it gives you that community. It builds that
That's right.
self-confidence where, you may not have a whole lot going for you, where you've just been a banker for your entire life, and you start to realize that being a servant to money is actually bringing no reward, and you're never
Right.
actually getting any fulfillment from it. No matter how much you make, you're just not feeling any better.
That's right.
Being promoted in jiu-jitsu, they give you these little pieces of tape on your belt, like every 6 to 9 months if you train pretty well. And most people that I know, there's no amount of money that equates to the value of that little piece of athletic tape. Like you,
Yeah.
you pulling it off of the roll, and your heart starts to race like, dear God, can that please be mine?
That's
And
right.
having that
Yeah.
thing where you constantly are like, okay, what's the next step? What's the next step? It keeps you going. It does give you purpose in life, and it's not some selfish purpose. You're in there and you're training with other people. You're making them better. You're all growing. The community's becoming better. You start seeing people out on the streets, and you're like, oh man, we train together. And then all of a sudden you're more comfortable at the mall because like, oh, I got this person that, like, I know if something were to go down, like this is my ride or die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's huge. The community, the jiu-jitsu community is beautiful. And also, nothing against boxing. I think boxing is a beautiful sport as well. But when you're over 40, CTE is real. Getting knocked around
Sure.
in the head for session after session is going to take its toll on you.
Yeah.
Jiu-jitsu, yeah, you're sore, your joints are going to be sore, your muscles are sore, there's risk for dislocation, but it's never because somebody over exerted on you. It's because you, in an effort to get up from the ground and turn over and reverse a sweep or something, you've, popped a toe, or
Sure.
you fought a submission too long where you should have tapped. Your ego is like, no, no, I got this. I'm going to get out. And that snapped. Okay, tap. But it's never because of animosity or something. And again, it's chess. So instead of it just being about sheer bronze and power and strength, it's a chess match from one person to the other. So I've
Yeah.
watched it change more people than I know. One of my favorite guys that I train in the gym, like I said, he was one of the guys who's lost 100 pounds doing strength training. But he heard about jujitsu and he's like, man, I'd like to try that sometime. That's my southern accent. That's not trying to,
That's
yeah. But he's like, I'd like to try that sometime. And I was like, anytime, let's go. And he came into the gym, and his eyes were wide, and he was sweating before anything even started. And he kept looking at the exit. And I would just touch him on the shoulder. I'm like, stop looking at the exit. Just stop looking at it. Pretend it's not there. Stay here. You're fine. You're safe. And he just got his blue belt the other day. And this morning we rolled. And it's crazy. When we first started, he was just this big guy that I could just throw around and tap, tap, tap. And now I spent an hour on the mats with him, and I only got like 2 subs because he just knows how to defend himself, and he knows how to get out
right.
of these situations that are really scary. That doesn't mean that he ever taps me back, but he knows how to stay safe and how to
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
amazing. And he's addicted to it now. And that's coming from
Yeah.
somebody who was one of the most afraid I've ever seen.
Hmm.
So it
So
does
let's talk
change
about
people.
that.
Yep.
Let's talk about injury prevention and anxiety getting
Yeah.
started. So
Yeah.
so what is your strategy to reduce the risk of injury for especially somebody over 40 who that's going to be an
Yeah.
anxiety? And what do you say to somebody wanting to get started in the sport?
Okay, so knock on wood again. I have required no surgeries at this point. And that's kind of rare in the sport.
Okay.
Just because people usually hurt their knees or shoulders or elbows, or
Mhm.
lower backs or whatever. But circling it back to, why do we strength train? It's not just to build muscle, it's to strengthen everything. It's to protect our organs and our joints. Every day I show up late, and they always make fun of me because I don't do the warm-ups with them. But I've been
Hmm.
awake since 4 a.m. and I work out in the morning, and I work out hard. I pick up heavy things and I set them down. So when I get to the gym,
You're warmed
I'm
up.
I'm warmed up, and I tell them all the time. I'm like, shh, shh, you keep going, do your thing, worry about me later. And I watch these guys out for long periods of times with injuries. This is hurt, that's hurt, this is hurt, that's hurt. I got to get surgery here, surgery here. And it's generally, again, it's not because somebody else hurt them. It's because their body can't keep up with the demands
Hmm.
of the sport. And the reason it can't keep up is because they're not training their body to be fit and mobile in the first place. So to me, it is imperative that strength training is a part of it. And you have to have it. And you watch the guys who are really good at it, they all strength train. That doesn't mean that anybody who trains all the time is good at it. They understand the technicalities, but their ability to recover from hard matches and stay and get minor injuries and bounce back. Oh, I sprained this, I sprained that, and come back. It's because they strength train. So if you're over 40 and you're not lifting, I don't care what sport you're doing, whether you're
You're gonna get
cycling,
hurt.
running, if you're not focusing on core strength, if you're not doing sit-ups, planks, squats, all these other things to make sure that we're just protecting every part of the system, you're going to get hurt. You just are. So you got to strength train. And I think that if you're strength training enough and you're taking time to recover, you're staying hydrated and not just drinking water. I mean, I every time somebody sees me, I'm pounding 3 of these a day at least. And these, potassium, magnesium, sodium, and just guzzling water. And then as we sit here, it's constant, just always having to put
Right.
protein in. I need the muscle to be there because that strong muscle, strong core, strong back. I've been really lucky, really fortunate. And I know that's kind of an injury that's going to require some attention. I'm going to be proactive about it. I'm not going to go push it too hard. I'm going to take a couple days off, work on the ice plunge, work on the sauna, mobility,
Sure.
hot yoga, and get back to it. It's You don't have to be a professional athlete to treat yourself like one, you know?
And for those listeners who wouldn't see what Nick just held up, it's that hydration powder you put in your sports drinks. It's the sugar-free kind. It's got electrolytes and other stuff. If you're sweating a lot, that is critical for a lot of systems in the body. So that is very important. Nick, you
Right.
talked a lot about the men that you train with, but
Yep.
let's are there women who take jujitsu at the studio? And if so, let's talk about the benefits to women.
Yes. There is a girl specifically, I'll tell her by her name. Her name is Madison. And when she was a purple belt, which it goes white, blue, purple, brown, black. Black belt you can expect in about 10 years if you're training pretty diligently for
Wow.
10 years straight. It's the slowest martial art to get promoted in to reach black belt. And there's a reason for it because this martial art actually works. Um, but she is smaller than me. She's prettier than me. She's a singer. She's a vocal coach,
Oh,
and
nice.
she used to always. I'm muscly, and I would come at her, and I'd be like, I'm going to take it easy on her because she's a girl, and she would just beat my ass. And when I say beat it, I mean like badly, like to where the chokes were not something where I'd be like, oh, I guess I'm going to tap because I'm stuck here. No, if I didn't tap, I was going to wake up someplace else. Same thing with arm bars, like triangle chokes. All these things that she would put on me were worse than any of the guys that I was training with. So finally, as I got better, I was like, it's time for me to avenge myself. I'm going to fight this chick like she's a man. And I turned it up a notch on it. And I found out that she was just playing with me all those years because she turned it up a notch. I
Wow.
never, she's a black belt now, and I never had a chance against her one time. I haven't seen her in years because she trains at another gym now. And I'm hoping that maybe I have enough technical experience to be able to do something to her. But any of these guys out there that are like, I could take a chick, you cannot. If this girl trains and
Yeah.
she trains well, she's going to kick your ass. What's cool about it is you had asked me, you were telling me some of the questions that might pop up in this interview and about why girls join and if they join. I had asked
Yeah.
one of the girls that I train with. Her name's Kat Kennedy, and she does striking as well. But her
Hmm.
jujitsu game, she's right on the cusp of becoming a purple belt, which
Okay.
that's 5 years or so in the sport. And
It's a lot.
I let her get. Most guys, I'll let them get into a position on me where I'm like, I know I can get out of this, so I'll let them work for a second, and then I'll show them how I can get out. I let her get into a position on me, and she put my lights out as fast as anybody else ever has. I
Hmm.
mean, everything went hazy, and I was like, "Oh man, tap!" And as soon as she let go, it did the dim, and then the lights came back on, and I was like, "Holy crap!" So I was talking to her about why you get into these sports, and I asked her if I have the freedom to share this with her, but she'd been in a lot of relationships with men that were aggressive and abusive, and she wanted to make sure that that never happened again. And I said, "Well, that's awesome. And has it proven effective?" The thing about jujitsu is, and male on female aggression out in the world, when men are attacking women, it's generally to rape them. And as gross as that
Mm.
is, it's the truth. You think about it, it's never about this woman took my parking spot, so I'm going to go stand up and bang with her. It's usually women who are being attacked by men. The men are a sexual assault. The beautiful thing is that in jujitsu, generally when a man is in the position on top of a woman, especially with her legs spread, and I'm not trying to be graphic here, so if you need to put a disclaimer on all that, that's fine, but it's called
Okay.
guard. If you when a man is in a woman's guard who knows jujitsu, he's pretty much fucked because that's the setup for so many submissions from triangle chokes where they are able to get one leg around the neck and the other leg connects. They pull an arm across and you can submit a guy unconscious. Arm bars. There's all kinds, if they're wearing clothing or jackets, loop chokes, lapel chokes. There are numerous ways that an experienced jiu-jitsu practitioner, jiu-jitsu practitioner can take on, submit, sleep unconscious a much, much larger male opponent.
Wow.
So that's why she got involved, and it has just been resonant. Everybody else has echoed that and said that's the same thing. They just want to have that safety, and it is. They're not going out there trying to fist fight a guy and take him down because
Right.
you're not going to knock a guy out unless you get really, really lucky. It's just not going to happen. You're going to piss him off. You'll sleep a dude relatively easily with a little bit of experience.
So anybody concerned with self-defense, there is no peer to jiu-jitsu when it comes to a close, intimate, for lack of a better word, self-defense. I mean, if you've got a guy on you, you're gonna win.
There's nothing. And people will say it's a bias. It's not a bias. You can wrestle with each other, but in wrestling, once you put the other person on their back, that's a pin and the match is over. But what happens if you're on your back and the person is larger and the fight hasn't ended? He hasn't stopped just because you're on your back. Well, you got to figure out a way to choke him, and you can.
And there's ways.
There are absolutely ways. There's absolutely ways. No matter how aggressively they're coming at you, there are definitely ways to protect yourself, reverse the roll, and escape safely. I'm not going to say 100% of the time that, all of a sudden it's a superpower, but I do promise you that when people like Madison and Nicole, one of our other female coaches who's been a world champion numerous times, and we got a lot of these women that train to that level. I promise you, you come in off the streets thinking you're Billy Badass because you lift a couple weights or whatever and you're strong. They're going to put the lights out, Yeah. And when you wake up, we'll tell you good morning. Now
that's awesome.
Join our team and don't do that to women.
Don't do that to women at all.
Exactly.
But
period. Not everybody's catching that message. That's why the jails are so full still. Yeah.
Sadly not.
Right.
But and you find the sport, or at least your gym is welcoming to people from any background, women, men, regardless who you are, you're welcome there.
Everything. In fact, I offer scholarships through my nonprofit too. I have a nonprofit that brings exercise and nutrition into the jails, the correction facilities here in Nashville.
Oh, wow.
And as an extension of that, once they're released, I provide them with a gym membership at any gym that they want to go to. But I highly encourage that they come to our gym for jiu-jitsu, martial arts, because it brings you you're not just being dropped off at a Planet Fitness where you're left in there to try to figure out how to lift weights, but you're being put in a community that might be able to change your life and change the trajectory and the community that you might be used to, which is all based around drugs or whatever your other issues are. And it's something healthy. Man, we've got some people signed up and I watch them just keep showing up, and they're not going back into the system. So you talk about recidivism. It's like, well, this thing's working. So yes, we've got law enforcement, we've got noobs, we have, influencers, there's graphic designers, there's everything that you can imagine, personal trainers, tons of musicians because it's Nashville.
It's Nashville.
But it's all across the board. And we have very large individuals that can't do front rolls and back rolls. And their exercises are modified to their strengths and weaknesses. And then we've got little nimbly bimbly people that are just spider monkeys. So it's a little bit of everything. And at the end of the day, we all line up and we all shake hands on the way out. We all have parties together. We have UFC fight parties together. We have team training. Nice. We all just gather, and it's community, and it really is it's a fellowship, and
that's great.
Across the board.
And on that community thing, real quick, something I'd like to talk about, because that is something Chris, I don't know if you got a chance to read that article about from the Atlantic, but it was about the fact that we're kind of, he talks a lot about the author, and I can't think of the author's name, but talks a lot about how with these things, phones, I'm holding up a phone, with those, we have switched our communities basically we're very close with our families more so now than probably we used to be because of those devices. And we're very close to our tribal instincts, but community, like the people around us, those interactions aren't happening. That's driving a lot of that anxiety. And those are the types of bonds that are typically historically for humans found within your village, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't have villages per se anymore like that.
Correct.
And it's not something he really hits on in that article, but I think there can be a case made, especially what you're talking here, is you can form these villages around a fitness community.
Right.
That is where those happen, because you have an activity. It's jiu-jitsu. You're going and that's your village right there. Your village is that those other people that do jujitsu with you. And
Right.
I wonder, do you see that maybe as an elite part of the reason why jujitsu as an exercise alleviates anxiety? Because you're actually physically have to have another person to do jujitsu. I can run by
Connection.
myself all day long,
Connection,
but you have
exactly.
to.
You're interacting. You're finally interacting hands on, and it's very intimate in the fact that your opponent, it's most people that'll come in, like I've got one of my favorite personal trainers in Nashville. His name is Aronde Jones, and he trains at Barry's Boot Camp. He also trains at Takes Two Fitness, and he has just the beautiful specimen of a human. And I talked him into coming to jiu-jitsu one time, and he just ran one of marathon in Chicago the other day. And he told me, he said, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. And just this amount of sweat that comes
Hmm.
out of 15 minutes of rolling. So you've got this opponent where you guys aren't just playing patty cake. It feels like a fight for your life, and you're dripping on each other and you're breathing. You smell bad. It doesn't matter. You're getting so close to these other people. It's a different level of connection where they become closer than anybody else in your life. I know people that go in there with their computers and they work from home, they work remotely, and you can just see them just waiting for class to start because they're sitting behind their computer screen and they can't wait to close it and just have community. The
Yeah.
class ends and people just stick around to hang out on the mats. They're drenched, laying next to each other, talking, going to grab food together afterwards. I posted recently on my own social media and I just took a picture of my teammates on that day and I said, if I didn't have this, and then I just paused that thought and I said, I don't even want to think about that because I could not
Yeah.
imagine. Like you could take my music away from me at this point, and I think I'd survive. You could take away, weightlifting from the gym, and I'd find a way to I'd still do walking lunges, push-ups, and all that stuff, and I'd survive. But if you took away the community of jujitsu from me, I know that would be the slippery slope to my demise.
Yeah.
They say the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, but connection. So
Wow.
I think that's it's a
No.
valuable lesson.
That is good. I like that. Yeah.
I like it.
So so Nick, as we kind of wrap up here, if somebody was interested in engaging you for training, maybe in the gym or maybe in the jujitsu mat,
Yeah.
where can they find you?
Instagram is probably the easiest way. I'm at Nick Britt-Cunningham. Uh, and that's the way it starts. Anytime somebody's either or, they connect to me because they want to do this or that. I had even my neighbor yesterday, he hit me up and he said, "Hey man, I think I'm finally ready to try your gym." And I had no idea what he was talking about. I didn't know if he meant he wants to start weightlifting or if he wants to start jujitsu, but he said if I wanted to come to the gym, what should my running level be? Push-ups, pull-ups, where should my baseline be for me to start? And I
Mhm.
said, Tuesday at 10:30,
Yeah.
you walk through the door. Come as you are. Because there's no amount of weight that you need to hit. There's no amount of push-ups or sprints that you need to be capable of. You're going to walk in the door and you're going to transform. Jiu-jitsu is just the best. Now, if that's too scary for you and you just want to focus on some of the cosmetic stuff and working on the brain, then yeah, we can lift weights and I'm open for either. But basically what happens is if you become my personal training client in the weightlifting world, I'm still trying to be evangelical for jujitsu. I'm like,
Jiu-jitsu.
you got to come over, and vice versa. If you're doing jujitsu with me, I'm telling you, man, you got to train. And I have both. I've got teammates from jujitsu. Uh, they're some of my favorites because I've watched them work so hard. I've got this guy. His name's Jordan. I watched him compete in Atlanta, and he was competing against a guy. And in the middle of the match, you could see him wince, and he stood up and could barely put any weight on his leg. And they pulled him to the center of the mat because they were rolling off the mat. And the ref was like, "Are we continuing?" And he's like, "Absolutely," and couldn't hardly walk.
Wow.
Finished this match, beats him, gets the gold medal. Come to find out, had tore MCL. Like it's just
Ugh,
gone. So had to have surgery over it. But this guy had the grind in him to keep fighting even with a broken leg. And now he comes
dedication.
and exactly, and he comes into the gym and we just strength train around it. Most people think I've got this injury, so I can't do anything. I love the mentality of I have all these other things, these arms, this chest, this back, these hips, these abs that still need to be trained. So anyway,
Yeah.
whether you train jujitsu, I'm going to have you in the gym to lift weights. And if you're in the weights and you're getting strong and you're starting to really feel good about yourself, I'm going to come try to make you test that on the mats.
That
I
sounds
like
great.
that you also put it that way. You told next Tuesday is the time. It's not when you get a fitness level. I mean, I run into that with our running group here in town. People are like, "Well, I just want to be able to run this far before I come out with you guys." I was like, "No, everybody's at their own level. We're gonna get out and run, and you just do as much as you can."
Correct.
But the most important step is starting. Like that's
Correct.
that's
Showing
it. If
up.
you don't do the
Show
starting,
up.
you're never going anywhere.
Never.
Yeah.
And
If you
if you
don't show
think,
up, you'll never get anywhere.
and if I leave it to them to figure out when they're going to come, it's soon. I'll get there soon. Or you need to come this winter. You need to come this summer. Instead, it's just like the guy, Jason Bishop, who told me, Monday, just be there
Yeah.
Monday. Now, when this guy texted me yesterday, said, I'll see you Tuesday at 10:30. It's just that simple. And he said,
That's
great,
awesome.
see you there. And I know he's going to be addicted. So when we follow up on this podcast, ask me about Steven.
We will.
All right. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us, Nick. And we'll link to Nick's Instagram.
Sure. Yeah. Tone Up Personal Training is also my website.
Tone Up.
So there's links
Okay.
there to all my other social media. So TONEUP personaltraining.com. And I'd
There
love
you
to have
go.
anybody. Also, when you train with me, part of that goes to my nonprofit, which is called Kintsugi Kinetics. So part of when you train with me, that's actually funding the fact that I go into the jail and get to work out with these other guys, and then really trying to get people into a healthy mindset. So I appreciate anybody coming through, even if it's just for one package of sessions. It doesn't need to be lifelong, but it goes a
Yeah.
little bit further, and we appreciate you.
That's really
That's
important
awesome.
work.
Yeah.
Once again, Nick, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. This was
My honor,
great.
my pleasure. Thanks for including
Hopefully, we'll
me.
be able to talk in to coming on again.
Anytime.